Yo, yo, what is up, guys? It's Cone back here with another recap of the daily games from the NBA today. It was a pretty packed day. The Thunder played today. We got killed by the team. I kind of want to focus this video on the LA Clippers, but I'm going to go through all the games quickly before, as I usually do, and then talk a lot about the Clippers at the end because they're the team I kind of want to focus on. I've gotten a pretty good look at them the last 2 days. I try and watch a bit of every game before I talk about them, but the Clippers, they played the Thunder the last 2 games, and I've gotten a really good look at how good this team is. So I want to go through it and talk about that. First of all, I want to say that if anyone's been keeping up with my Twitter, or I've mentioned a few videos, I was dealing with COVID, but today I would probably say I'm feeling almost back to 100%. So thank you guys, anyone who wished me well, anyone who supported during this. I appreciate it. I'm getting back to normal, and I'm going to keep trying to get videos out to you guys more regularly now that I'm not dealing with that stuff. So appreciate you guys. I'll go ahead and just get into the games. Raptors Pacers. Miles Turner was really good. OG Anunoby was really good. The Raptors are turning it around a little bit, and the Pacers really need TJ Warren back. They're struggling to score the ball sometimes, and to have a scorer like that would be huge for them. Hopefully, he's able to come back soon enough. On the Raptors side of the ball, like I said, they're kind of picking it up, which is cool to see. I made a video a couple days ago about them maybe wanting to blow it up. I still think that should be an option they should consider. Specifically, trading Kyle Lowry. I think Kyle Lowry should be the main idea to trade. I think he would probably be the guy. So I don't know, something that I think they should still consider. Hornets Magic. Gordon Hayward hit a game winner. He was really good today. The Magic are super depleted. They just cannot get people healthy and staying on the court. This Magic team is going to be a lottery team, and I think that they might want to consider moving on from some guys. I think they might want to consider moving on from Vucevic specifically, because I'm sure there are teams out there who would be willing to offer something for him, like maybe a Celtics or a Nets. I don't know what specifically the Nets have much to offer, but I know the Celtics have a pretty big trade exception. So if you want to get off that salary somehow and kind of just do a little bit of a reset, I don't know if this Magic team is going anywhere. They might want to focus on the youth of a Markel Fultz and a Jonathan Isaac coming off of injuries, a Cole Anthony. But what do I know? On the other side of the ball, Hornets are super entertaining. Gordon Hayward was fantastic tonight. Not much else I can say about them. I talk about the Hornets a good bit because, like I said, they are pretty fun to watch. So I do watch a lot of their games. Another game, Cavaliers Celtics. This was a pretty big one. The Cavs just could not stop the Celtics tonight. Celtics won by 38 without Jason Tatum. I tweet this out today. The Celtics are really dangerous. If they had like an extra bench wing, like I think they should really consider one of two guys from the Rockets, either a PJ Tucker. The only problem with him is he's not super scoring, and I think that this team could use some of that scoring off the bench, or an Eric Gordon. I think Eric Gordon could fit really well in this team. He's proven to be able to come in and just score off the bench whenever you need him to. And I think that the Celtics could really benefit from having that guy being able to come in and score outside of like a Tatum or a Brown. Just a proven scorer, like a Lou Will type role, who we'll talk about in a little bit, who's looking kind of washed. But Eric Gordon had a pretty big game the other night. I think he's still a pretty effective player, and I think the Celtics could get a lot out of him. Then you have Hawks Bucks. DeAndre Hunter had a career high. He scored over 30 tonight. He was really good, but the Hawks just aren't enough for the Bucks. The Bucks are amazing, and Giannis had another really good performance. This Hawks team is kind of being kind of wishy-washy right now. I do think that they are a playoff team, especially with the Wizards looking as bad as they have looked. But they're going to have to find some sense of consistency if they're going to want to make any noise in this year's Eastern Conference playoffs. Next, you have Wizards Spurs. Russell Westbrook is starting to kind of look washed. I think he's still injured. He is my favorite player of all time. You can see the Russell Westbrook poster in the background right there. But he has not looked good so far this season. I do think he is dealing with that quad injury still a good bit. Scott Brooks said today that he's not 100%, which I don't know why you would play him if he's not 100%. Clearly, it's a lingering thing ever since he got hurt last year. And I just want Westbrook to be the best version of himself, man. I hate seeing people talk about how washed he is on the timeline. I hate seeing people talk about him as if he's not a great player. I think he still does have the potential to be a great player for this Wizards team. He's just got to stay healthy. On the Spurs side of the ball in this one, Patty Mills led the way scoring wise, but it was honestly just an all around effort. Devin Vassell had some pretty good minutes, which was cool to see. A guy who we haven't seen a lot of so far this season. The Spurs do have a lot of wings that need some play time, a lot of young guys, so it's understandable, but it was cool to see him kind of show out. I think he had like 14. Yeah. Knicks Trailblazers, that's still going on as I'm filming this right now, but the Blazers are up pretty comfortably 23 right now. I don't know if the Knicks are going to be able to come back from that. The Blazers seem to have made some decent adjustments, despite having no CJ McCollum, having no Yusuf Nurkic. They're making adjustments, which is interesting because I know a lot of Blazers fans talk about how Terry Stotts really doesn't seem to make adjustments sometimes. So I don't know. Maybe he's turning himself around. And finally, we get to the game I really want to talk about, the Thunder Clippers game. I'll start with my Thunder. I say my Thunder like I own the team. My favorite team, the Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These past two games has been incredible. He put up over 30 last game against a really really tough Clippers defense. They've been throwing Paul George at him. They threw Kawhi Leonard at him. They threw Nick Batum, who's still a solid defender, at him. Marcus Morris, who's a decent defender. They threw all these good defenders. Patrick Beverley at him, and he managed to score over his season average in both games. Well, second game he scored like 21, I believe, which is right around his season average, but being able to score around that season average and above against a really tough defensive team like this is easily his next step to becoming kind of a star in this league. He needs to get that offensive consistency, even when you are throwing tough defenders at him. And I think he was able to prove that he's able to do that these past two games. He was incredible. Lou Dort was pretty good the first game. Today, he could not buy a shot. And for a guy who has absolutely excelled all expectations on the offensive end, there was bound to be some nights where he just wasn't going to be able to score. He also had some really tough defenders on him. So I'm not going to give him too much. He had Paul George on him a lot of the time, who's a very, very good defender. As a Thunder fan, I know someone who is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate a lot of the time. He deserves that credit. Um, that's really all I'll probably say about the Thunder. George Hill looks like a prime trade candidate. I think that the Clippers could honestly, this might have been an audition for him to get traded to them. He's a really, really good player, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to pursue George Hill, especially using a guy like Lou Williams. Lou Williams looks so washed. I don't know what happened between this season and last. He went from the third place Sixth Man of the Year uh, candidate to a just a not a very good player at all. He's averaging less than 10 points per game. He's averaging like one assist. He just has not looked good at all. And I think that they need some more scoring on this team. This team, as you can probably tell by the title of the video, I think that this team is a title contender, and I think that this Clippers team is definitely better than last year's Clippers team. They just feel so much more like a contender, you know. So last season, I think I tweeted this out a couple of times. Whenever I would watch the Clippers, I'd hear all the hype and stuff, and I know they were super talented, but I would always think to myself, like, this team for some reason does not feel like a championship team. And I never could figure out why. They just didn't feel like one. And then they ended up losing, and I still think that they were a championship caliber team. They just didn't put it together in the playoffs. But this year, when I'm watching them, the Clippers feel like a championship team. And I think that's partially in regards to the emergence of Paul George, heading back to like that MVP form we saw him at OKC right before he got traded to the Clippers. Part of the reason why the Clippers were so highly regarded going into last season and now this season, a little less so, was because of Paul George. He's a really good player. Obviously, we knew what Kawhi Leonard could do because coming into last season, Kawhi Leonard was the reigning Finals MVP. A lot of people considered him the best player in the league. I never fully bought into that, but I did believe he was a top 5 player, top 3 player, depending on where you want to put him. Probably last season coming into it, I would have said 2, maybe 3. I don't know. LeBron, I definitely had number 1. Then you could throw like Giannis, Kawhi, KD when he's healthy, which he is now, wasn't last season. But really, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard have looked like the duo that they were supposed to be last season, this season. They look as dominant as they ever have, both of them. Paul George has done what he's done on incredible efficiency. He's averaging like one of his highest point per game totals of his career on 50% shooting from the field and 3-point range. Tonight he wasn't as good efficiency wise, but all in all, he just cannot be stopped a lot of nights. Kawhi Leonard's turnaround mid range is automatic. You throw in guys like I mentioned, a Nick Batum, who has been an amazing fit for this team. He has been incredible for them. A lot of people were joking the pickup, me included a little bit. I wasn't like super serious or anything like that, but a lot of people were joking it because it's obviously Nick Batum, who has been rotting on the Hornets bench, which if you're on the Hornets bench, a lot of times it means you're not very good. But he's been great for them. He just stands in the corner. He knocks on a three. He plays some solid defense. He plays like a PJ Tucker role with worse defense, but probably like similar shooting for the Clippers team, which is an important guy to have. A guy who just knows his role, who plays really well. And I think he does kind of fit better in this starting lineup than Marcus Morris does a lot of the time. Even though Morris is clearly the better player, if you're able to have Marcus Morris, if he's able to be that scorer off the bench that Lou Williams doesn't really look like he can be anymore, that's huge for your team. Throw in Zubac has been pretty good this season for them. Serge Ibaka, just bringing in Serge Ibaka really, really helped that team. Montrezl Harrell is a good player, but I think Serge Ibaka is about the same, if not better than Montrezl Harrell. especially in terms of fit for this Clippers team. I think having that spacing really, really helps them out in that starting lineup. He's just an all-around good player, and he plays so much bigger than he is. He's a good protector of the rim, which is something that they kind of missed last season. A lot of times, Zubac did decent at it, but Montrezl Harrell could never quite play that defense. So having both Zubac and Serge Ibaka now, that really helps them out. I do think that they still could use more scoring. Like I said, I mentioned a George Hill. I think he would be a really good pickup for this team. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come back to the Thunder, try and make a move for him. I don't think they really need any bigs. I think they're pretty set with Marcus Morris. You have Jermichael, oh no, not Jermichael Green. Jermichael Green's not on the team anymore. You have Marcus Morris. You have Nick Batum. That's who I was thinking of. You've got Serge Ibaka, Ivica Zubac. You've got a bunch of options for that team. But guard depth is kind of thin. Like with Lou Williams not playing well, you need someone to replace that. Patrick Beverly's still pretty good. He plays defense. He hits a shot every now and again. He does what you need him to do. Yeah, I think that they're really just a solid other guard away from being um, real. Like I think they already are real championship contenders, but I think that solidifies them a little bit. Someone who can kind of slow it down. This has been something that's been talked about with the Clippers, but I feel like they deserve the shout out just because of how well they have been playing and because they just whooped the Thunder 2 days in a row. Today maybe less so. Last game they went up by 27. The Thunder kind of cut into it, but just barely really couldn't get it back down to single digits. It started to look kind of close. I think the Thunder cut it to 10 the other day, and then just never could quite get it. Tonight, the Thunder cut it down to single digits. I think we cut it down to like 7 points or so, but then the Clippers just pushed it back up. We ended up losing by 8. It was a good fight from the Thunder, a young team that could easily just give up and say, yo, this team's a contender. We're not going to win. But they didn't, and I'm super happy about that. I've loved how this Thunder season's been going. I think we're tanking perfectly up to this point. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to tank because our schedule gets brutal, like even more brutal than having to play the Clippers back-to-back games. But yeah, so shout out to this Clippers team. They've been really good. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, both look like MVP candidates so far. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them won it if the Clippers continue on the trajectory that they have been on. So with that being said, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Pretty good run of games today. Didn't watch as much of them as I would have liked to because of the football games that happened. I was kind of my attention was divided between those two things. I hope that your team won today. If you are a Bucks fan or if you're a Chiefs fan, sorry to Bills and Packers fans out there. My brother's a Packers fan, so um, apologize to him. That being said, I will see you guys later. Everyone, say it back.